Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Youngs podcast. I'm Shay,
And I'm Dwight.
and we are the Youngs. We are back here with a part two from our previous episode, and the topic of that episode was step parents or being a step parent. So I feel like we had so much to discuss
Yeah.
and so much behind the scenes that we were saying we just was like, let's just continue the conversation in a part two because it's such a heavy topic for us.
Yeah.
You know, we deal with it like in our relationship, and you have your own personal experience that you've dealt with before.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was just too much to capture in just one episode.
Hmm.
And then we got some feedback from others that actually thought that they could benefit more from us speaking about it just a little bit more.
Hmm.
So, like Shay said, I had a lot to unpack the last episode, and
Hmm.
I still have more, believe it or not.
Yeah. I just think like certain topics, there will probably be like a part two depending on like the significance of it, or like if we get feedback from the viewers like, oh, give us more, or we want to know more about this or more about that. That's why we really tell you guys that we do love and appreciate the engagement that is given. So that's why we're here to do a part two of being a step parent.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very lengthy topic.
Hmm.
It's really in depth, especially if you have
Hmm.
or are in that role.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if we talked about your personal experience of being a step parent and how you felt about it in the
Hmm.
last episode, but I'd like to open up with that just to get your kind of your
um
feeling on that.
so for me, truthfully, I was terrified because I've never been in a relationship with anyone that had kids. So I was nervous.
Yeah,
But of course, Dwight, talked so highly of Jordan. And we had a conversation when we first got together. And Dwight was basically like, I have a daughter. Her name is Jordan. Like, pretty much, if y'all don't get along, like, I don't know what to tell you. But, me and Jordan met. And from day one, it was like we clicked. And it was scary just because now I knew, like, I have to be very like aware of what I'm saying, what I'm doing, and I wasn't used to that.
yeah,
And the more Jordan gets bigger and she's understanding more and she's not the average 7-year-old, her mind is so much like expanded. So I have to be very mindful of that, but sometimes it's tricky for me because there's like that line, like remember that she's actually 7 versus 17,
yeah.
because sometimes she'll say something to you and you're like, how do you know that? Like, how old are you? But um, I guess to answer your question, I was nervous just because I knew the importance of the relationship between her and I never had to really step in that motherly role, so I had no idea what to do.
Right. Yeah,
But I
yeah,
feel like in the same sense, it kind of came naturally. Like once I met Jordan and we kind of like had our time to like bond, and me just seeing the things that she was interested in and doing that. But also, I think a big fear of mine was just not causing any issues between, the co-parenting situation. But it seemed like no matter what we did, it still turned out to be some kind of like unsatisfaction from the other party.
yeah, yeah. It seems as though your comfortability
Hmm.
began to grow, and it seems like it's at a new height now. So
Hmm.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a real good thing. So the last episode, what I didn't really touch on was just, I guess, my personal experience in actually being, I guess you could say, that stepchild.
Hmm.
We kind of talked about being a step parent and our experience in that, um, but we never really talked about the other side of it. And I actually lived the other side of it as well. So for the child themselves, it's a lot more difficult than for the step parent
Hmm.
and for the biological parent, simply because they're adults and they
Right.
have different ways of coping with things. They have different ways of deciding what to do, what not to do. The children are stuck,
Right.
and in growing up, it's difficult when you're in that stepchild role. But in my situation, I was in that stepchild role and I had siblings as well.
Mhm.
But my siblings had the actual father that was biological, and I was the one that was kind of like the odd man out or the odd child out.
Mhm.
So that made it even more difficult because there are times when you're not really included
Right.
in the family. You know, you're not really included in the decisions. You're not really included. You almost feel like you're not wanted.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not part of that blood that runs through your brothers
Mhm.
because of their biological father being with your, you know, biological mother in my case. And it's really, really difficult because you feel like you're on an island by yourself. And I just want the biological parents and also the step parents to keep that in mind that even though your children don't may not have you both
Mhm.
as their biological parents, you have to make sure that you treat them equally.
Absolutely. I think that's important to be in a relationship, I guess, as a parent, and make sure that that other parent, which you would title the step parent, is willing and able and capable to take on that role, because you don't want your child to feel different. Like for us, we have Jordan and now we have DJ together.
Yeah,
So I don't want Jordan to feel like DJ's better than her or anything like that just because DJ shares both of our DNA.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like
Yeah.
that's very important to make sure like the step parent on their own outside of the biological parent creates the bond with its stepchild like themselves. And although it's difficult, I still think it's important.
Oh, very important. Very, very, very important. You want the kids to grow up feeling like they're equals. You want the kids to
Mhm.
grow up feeling like they're part of the family, no matter how many kids it is.
Right.
You know, you want them to feel that family aspect because it's important. It nurtures them. It helps
Yeah.
them. You never know what they're thinking. They're going through this just like you, but in a different way.
Right.
They don't have those outlets. They can't do anything to stop it. They can't escape it. They're just
Yeah.
there, and they're torn between. It could be two households. It could be two parents. You know, whatever the situation is, either way, the kids can't escape it, and they have to deal with it. So you have to make sure you make time to let every child in the residence know,
Mhm.
that they're equally as important. And
Yeah.
like I said, in my experience growing up, it was really really bad at times. It was almost unbearable. And I didn't really get that relief until I was able to go and live with my grandparents,
Mhm.
and
So do
my
you feel
grandma
like I'm
and my
sorry,
aunt actually uh,
raised you?
yeah, took me in one particular day, and I never really looked back.
Yeah.
I was in my early teen years, and when I left, my mother's residence, I went to live with my grandma. And of course, like I said, my grandma aunt actually took me away that night, and it was a whole situation and everything. And basically, you know, I I wasn't really welcome,
You're
which is
saying you
why
wasn't welcomed by your mom and that step parent?
in that particular
Got you.
scenario, yeah. So it was just one of those situations where you just went where I guess you could say where you were wanted,
Yeah.
where you felt like you were loved or what have you,
Mhm.
and you're a child. You're a child, so you can't really make that decision, and adults kind of make that decision amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And it's tough for a child to deal with, tough for a child to go through, and ultimately, it creates a divide between you and your siblings that you were in the residence with.
Yes.
And if your siblings are younger, they don't know what happened. They
Mhm.
don't understand it. All they know is they grew up a certain way,
And you grew up differently.
and you grew up differently, and they're wondering why you're different than them. They're
Mhm.
wondering why you feel differently than them, and
Mhm.
they have no idea. They may think they know, but a lot of them, if they're so much younger than you,
Yeah.
they
It's
have no
always like
idea.
that false perception, because I kind of deal with a little bit of a similar situation with my biological mom and my biological siblings, because they are way younger than me, but they never really understood why I'm not there or why I was just given away.
Yeah,
Like they don't understand the trauma of the oldest kid.
right.
When the parent has their first child, and of course, if it's your first child, you don't know what you're doing and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean everybody's childhood needs to be traumatic and just like exhausting because, it's a first time mom or whatever.
Right.
So that distance between age and then just the difference in how they were raised versus us, because the oldest ones always get it the roughest, and then you get the younger ones that come in, and then it's like, well, I couldn't do this for your older brother, but I'm gonna do this, and this for you. So then it's kind of like you kind of, in a sense, I hate to say it, but sometimes you're kind of like bothered because you're like, you don't know what the hell I went through
Right.
for you to have this good life right now, because that's not the same person that raised me.
Right. Right. You're exactly
So do you think like the shift from your mom's house to your other relatives, do you look at that as something that was positive and life changing for the good, or how do you like, what's your take on it?
it was for the good. It was definitely for the good, and I appreciate my grandparents for what they did. I love them for what they did. I love my aunt for stepping in and helping as well and making
Mhm.
sure I got there. And also, stepping in from time to time, or really most of my life, my aunt and my grandmom really
Mhm.
stepped in. My grandfather really stepped in and gave me a safe place to go. And a lot of times, that's where I would go, spend the
Yeah.
night with them and everything. And it really helped me through some tough times.
Yeah.
Even as a child. So it was definitely for the best, and it allowed me to actually focus
And what
on
your goals were.
on what my goals were at the time, and then also my high school years.
Yeah.
So it really kept me out of trouble. It really got me through school. It really kept my head on straight, and it
Mhm.
really allowed me to just pursue different things that brought me to
Right.
where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So
I think, I don't know about how you feel, but I feel like that's very common in like the African American or like Latino culture. Not many people are raised by their parents anymore.
yeah,
Like a lot of people are raised by the grandparents because the biological parent just, they can't do it,
yeah,
you know? And I just think I think it's a good thing because some people kind of avoid a lot of traumatic things happening to them. But at the same time, I think no matter what your age is, if you go through some level of rejection or feeling of unwantedness from your biological parent, that
yeah.
will always be with you and affect you to some capacity.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's just one of those things where you go through it, you learn from it, you know what not to do with your children,
Right.
and you just become a better person.
Hmm.
And then whatever you went through, you make sure that if it's a parent or step parent or whatever, you give it to God, you forgive
Yeah.
them, and you move on. And that's
Yeah.
just what I did. Give it to God, forgive them, move on. Don't didn't even bring it back up ever again, and
Hmm.
just still you just love your parents, love your step parents, what have you, and just do the best you
Yeah.
can moving forward.
Yeah. And truthfully, some step parents are actual parents to these kids that are out here. Like, let's be honest. Some of the step parents are doing more than the biological parents are doing, and I believe I said that in the last episode when we talked.
Right.
And you know, there's some, excuse my language, there's some shitty step parents that won't take on that responsibility, but there are a lot of people out here that if they love you, they love that kid.
Oh,
You know what
definitely,
I'm saying?
definitely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And you're in that role currently,
Mhm.
and I was in that role previously,
Mhm.
and you give your all.
Yeah.
You invest in that child just like you invest in the relationship,
Mhm.
just like you invest in the entire family, just like you invest in your biological children.
Right.
So it's a lot to take on, but if you're willing to do that and you're all in, the biological parents need to recognize that, and you need to appreciate the step parents for
Mhm.
who they are and what they're doing and the things that they don't have to do.
Right, exactly. And I feel like for us and for me, the most important thing at the end of the day is Jordan being okay. And I know she's young, but it's very important to make sure her mental state is good. Growing up in the crazy world that we have now, you don't want Jordan to feel anything negative because you don't know what she's being exposed to at school, on her bus drives, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's like we want to make sure the environment that she is in is full of love, she feels safe, she feels protected, and that's the major thing. And she may feel like she can rely on us more than she can rely on that other person, and that's like the goal. So sometimes it's frustrating when you're dealing with another biological parent that's outside of our household that has like almost opposite beliefs. At least that's the way I receive it. And it's like, what parent doesn't want their kid to be happy? What parent wants to expose their kid to negative, want to expose their kid to negativity, or just like not really be focused on the kid?
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's just one of those things where you have to pick and choose your battles,
Hmm.
and you have to keep the child in mind when you're going through that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
You can't fight every battle because you still want the child to be able to be at ease going if it's
To
two
both
residences.
locations,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you want them to be at ease and not be exposed to that
Hmm.
negativity. You
But
know.
also, like, I feel like there are step parents out here that, and they've put their all into their stepchild, and their stepchild kind of took that for granted.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like for you, that was something that you've had to experience and you've learned to kind of deal with and let go. And
Hmm.
I'm very proud of you for that. You've come a long way with that situation. And I feel like you've done and did all you could do for that individual. And the way that the relationship has ended or transpired, like, that's not on you at all. And I'm very proud of you for giving it to God and allowing God to guide you and not just, how some people are.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the sadder end of the spectrum when you put all you can put into a kid, just the willingness to accept the responsibility of another child is heavy within itself, because you're not just accepting that kid, you're fully taking on the responsibility. Like, this is my kid. And for you, everyone that you know, every coworker that you know, everyone that has come in contact with you thinks that this person is your kid. And that's not the case. But they think that because of how serious you took your role.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Oh
for
yeah.
step parents that are out there, and if you're in that situation and it doesn't end the way you would have ever anticipated it to, don't be hard on yourself, or don't be too hard on yourself, because at the end of the day, if you sit down and you're able to evaluate the situation and what you brought to this individual's life, give it to God, but also know that you've done all you can do, and be proud in knowing that this individual is successful because of the road you set up for them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying you got to have like this bad energy towards that individual, because that one kid, one time that was your child, but let it rock. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. My situation, just prayed about it, like you said,
Mhm.
and feel at peace, feel at ease with it. You know, it gets to the point where once they become adults and they're well into their adult years,
The decisions are on them.
yeah, decisions on them, and you hold them accountable just like anyone else.
Mhm.
As a step parent, we're held accountable.
Yep.
You're held accountable for your decisions, for your actions when it comes to that biological child, when it comes to dealing with that co-parenting situation, when it comes to dealing with the biological parent that's there with you, the step parent is held accountable in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But let's still keep in mind that the step parent, although their role is different, they're still having to do the same role in so many ways as the biological parent.
Yeah.
So it's still up to the step parent to hold the biological parent accountable.
Yeah.
When
Absolutely.
when they get in a situation where they're doing more,
Mhm.
when they get in a situation where they're like, wait a minute, how come you're taking a back seat all the time now? How
Yeah.
come you're so comfortable putting it on me all the time now?
Yeah.
The biological parent still has to be held accountable.
Yeah. I
When
agree.
that stepchild gets older, still should be held accountable. Hey, I was your step parent, but I acted as your
Your parent,
biological parent because
right?
this other biological parent was nowhere to be found.
Mhm.
Now I'm holding you accountable because you can't pick and choose when I'm going to be your parent and when I'm not going to be your parent. Like you have to you have a role to play in this as well now that you're an adult.
Right, exactly.
So we have to hold everyone accountable at some
Hmm.
point.
Yeah. I just feel like not every um step parent and child relationship is going to be successful,
Yeah.
and not always are you going to get a situation where there's a step parent and two biological parents, no matter what the angles may be. Not all the time are you going to get um another biological parent that's able to be in somewhat of an agreement with this new step parent that has come into play. And
Right.
I think no matter what, the main priority should always be the child and the child's well being. And like I said in the previous episode, as long as the step parent and the biological parent, like for our situation, is in agreement, then that's all that should matter. I understand the respecting that individual because they may be the biological mom or biological father and things like that, but the reality is this person is outside of our relationship and outside of our household. So we are responsible for this child when this child is in our care, which also means we are responsible for setting rules, boundaries, and also like teaching the child how to be responsible, how to have respect, how to have morals, cleaning up, doing this, doing that, because that's on us when the baby's in our care. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like no matter what your level of step parent may be or what your experience may be, I feel like it's important for everyone who is either talking to someone that has children, fresh in a relationship with someone who has children, or no matter what your level of relationship may be, I would recommend from my experience is to really just one on one, if the biological parent is comfortable, of course, allow that one on one time with the child to get to know what that child enjoys and get to know what that child likes to do. You know what I'm saying? Because then just you going to sit in the room and watch YouTube or something like that, knowing that that child loves YouTube, you may make that baby's day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So don't give up if you're feeling stressed, because some biological parents can make it very stressful.
Absolutely.
But I would just say keep going. And I think, if the love between, the parents, step parent and other biological parent, or however you want to say it, is strong and there's just that strong bond or connection within the family, then I think that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And what I would say, the last thing I would say about it is just as much as the biological parent should recognize the step parent and all the step parent is dealing with when it comes to that whole situation, just simply because they're coming into it new.
Hmm.
I would like for the step parent to still acknowledge and come to that realization that this biological parent that you're with in this relationship is in the middle of everything. It's not just the step parent, it's the biological parent because the biological parent is the one that's actually co parenting. The biological one that's actually dealing with whatever drama or whatever the other co parent is dishing out first. And then the biological parent is also wanting to make sure that that child is good in the home, just like the step parent is. But also, the biological parent is wanting to make sure the step parent is good in the home as well with the biological child, and then also with the co parent and all the interference that's going on.
Hmm.
So, we don't want to lose that when we're trying to make sure the step parent is okay. We're trying to make sure the stepchild is okay and any other biological children. Don't forget about that biological parent that's in the household who's trying to hold everything together and make sure everyone is happy and pretty much taking the brunt of things when that other biological parent is behaving or acting a certain way. They're the first line of defense.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like when it comes to this topic, we can probably talk for hours and hours and hours because we have our own personal experiences. We have
Definitely.
experiences together. But, like we said, we wanted to do a part two just to kind of come on here and finish some thoughts up that we had from the previous episode. So next week will definitely be a new topic. So
Yeah.
we would love for you guys to tune in next week. think that's it for the podcast. So we would also like to remind everyone to continue to like our videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to everyone who is already subscribed and have their notifications on so you know when we post.
Yeah.
Also, do not forget to look in our description box. Our Instagram page is down below. We ask everyone to follow our page and show some love. And that's it for the youngs. And we are
Please.
out. Peace.
Peace.